Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Grutniblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to give you all the best streamers and ad options for next week so you can start planning early. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, the man with the best pinup calendar pose of all time. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are you feeling tonight?
The best pinup. Okay, buddy. You know what? I feel great. Reunited, and it feels so good. Buddy, I missed you. All right. And I appreciate the shout out on the calendar. Our sales have gone up 200%. Okay. Based on the promotion here on this fantasy hockey podcast, buddy.
Amazing.
Yeah. And, in fairness, like you were a major purchaser of that. I don't know why you need so many copies. I don't understand. And you don't have to pay for it. I'll just get, I send you pictures all the time. So I don't understand. I appreciate the support though, Nate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's partially the support and partially, they keep finding their way to the trash. So,
Oh
yeah.
God, that's you're a good friend. All right, that's nice.
Well, let's not waste any time, Blake. We tend to run long on these, so let's get into it. Let's hit the newsies.
Newsies. That's a dig to me. All right, saying we run long. Nate is being very passive aggressive, and that's hurtful. But we're gonna carry on like it never happened. We got to talk about some newsies here. First off, some interesting stuff. Jordan Eberle of the Seattle Kraken had pelvic surgery. All right, he was working a little too hard. That doesn't work. All right, he's going to be out for at least 3 months, which is terrible for him and the Kraken. He was actually playing pretty good this year. Andrei Burakovsky, one of my faves, all right, that does nothing, literally nothing out there on the ice. He's getting the bump to line one and power play one. In quotations, power play one, because they do actually run a 1A and 1B power play there in Seattle. Thank you, Dan Bylsma. That's a legacy you didn't need to carry on, but he's choosing to do that anyway, so that's fine. But Burakovsky maybe gets a little bit of a bump there. Vince Dunn as well with Seattle Kraken. He's traveling with the team, but he's still a ways away from playing. He's just there to get in some practices. I think he's still probably a couple weeks out. So in the meantime, the full Monty. I talked about him in the Buy Low show. This guy's cooking right now. And I maintain that I had him on my Buy Low show before. All right. He popped off for a goal in this last game. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Nate, are you with me on this?
Absolutely. I support you in all things.
Oh God, that's so nice. What a vibe. This show is just an absolute vibe, and I'm here for it. Let's move on over to the Minnesota Wild. We got to talk about our boy Kirill Kaprizov taking a knee-on-knee hit. You hate to see it. There was on Thursday there, appeared to be shaken up. And, Coach Jay Hines, we're still not sure about his first name, right. Mentioned, that's right. I love the ketchup, though. It's obviously elite, in the ketchup.
Top tier.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Hines says Cap is getting treatment, but he does say that he thinks he avoided a major injury. So that's great news. Doesn't mean that Cap's, not going to miss a couple games. I think we should consider him day to day, even though he might not be day to day in Yahoo right now. I don't think he is actually, but he could miss the game coming up here. I don't think there's any reason for them to rush him out there. So just keep an eye on Cap. If he does miss 1 or 2 games, obviously Ryan Hartman, he gets a boost. He's already on power play 1, which is pretty darn nice. Marco Rossi's going to get a little bit of a boost as well. And just some interesting news there in Minnesota as well. Declan Chisholm, one of the coolest names out there. He got some power play 1 time over Brock Faber there. Poindexter, that's what I'm calling Brock Faber. If anyone's seen his Yahoo headshot there, you'll understand why. Okay. So Chisholm's getting power play 1 over Faber just for 1 game there. So keep an eye on that. That's an interesting piece. I mean, Faber, we know he's not a guy that's really known for his offensive prowess. He gets most of his production just by being out on the ice for a crap ton of time and having access to amazing players like Cap and Boldy. So Chisholm on power play 1, interesting piece. I mean, maybe stream him in if you need a Minnesota player, but I'm not sure that really lasts very long there. But something of interest. Anyways, in Buffalo, we'll move over there. Big Tage Thompson, not quite ready to return, but I at least feel good about what they're doing with Tage right now. They're taking a cautious approach, which leads me to believe when he does get back, he's going to be 100%. Obviously, they have a back-to-back here. So he missed Friday's game, which is tonight, and there's no guarantee that he's going to play on Saturday. But Lindy Ruff says that he's hopeful that he will. Either way, Tage is trending in the right direction. He should be back next week for this amazing scheduling week that Nate's going to talk about here soon. We're super stoked about this, aren't we, Nate?
So unbelievably stoked.
Buddy, I was taking a drink of my beer. You were supposed to cover me on that. Oh, God.
I wasn't looking.
You know what? We missed one show, and we're just a little bit out of sync. Don't worry. We might cross the streams mid pod here. I think that's a really good way to get our connection back. What do you think about that, Nate?
Cross the streams mid pod across the country. That would be an impressive bit of work, even for us.
No, that's good watching, though, right? Am I right? Watching, listening, whatever. You know what I mean?
Might get taken down off YouTube, though.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll see. Well, let's not rule anything out. Let's be open-minded. Anyways, let's move on. Tage could be back on Saturday. Check his status. He should be back next week. Over to Vancouver. This is a team that's going to matter this upcoming week. Brock Besser is traveling with the team on the upcoming road trip here, but he's not going to make his return on Saturday. So he could get in at some point here on the road trip as he works his way back from a concussion. So just keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, yeah, it's Connor Garland. It's a bunch of other slugs, P.S. Suitors out there. It's wild stuff. Kiefer Sherwood is getting like some run, which is really nice. So we'll talk about the Canucks in a little bit here. Over to your team, Toronto Maple Leafs there, Nate. Matthew Nyes placed on the IR retro to November 20th there after taking I don't know, what do you think of that hit? Like, I know that I think it was 50-50. Some people were, was it dirty? Is shot to the head and not? I mean, I saw it like once and I was like, it just looks like a hard hit. It didn't really look dirty to me, but I don't know. What was your take on that?
Yeah, I still don't honestly understand the definition of what is and isn't hit to the head. So there's that part for sure. Like he kind of like comes across his body, so you can't act. I don't like everybody's like, oh, he hit him in the chest first. I honestly don't know how you can tell that from the angles we have. But definitely, I think honestly, probably the most damage was when he went to the ice because I think he bounced his head off the ice when he went down, and that's probably where the bigger issue occurred, but huge hit regardless. And yeah, it might have started with the other stuff that went on in that game. It was a little bit
chippy.
A little bit chippy here and there. So yeah, unfortunate for Nyes, but yeah, those hits will happen from time to time for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Stinks for them, but just means more opportunity. And now we get to see Alex Nylander and Willie Nylander. Are you excited about this?
I am. I'm unreasonably excited about this, to be honest with you. I just want to see him play on the same line at the same time. I just think it'd be so cool. I want that visual one time. I don't care if it works or not. Just throw him out there. Make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen, Mr. Berube. Oh, don't worry. I'll send an email. He's very responsive to these things, Nate.
Excellent.
Okay. Over to Edmonton. Zach Hyman, been tooting in our faces all season. Why not a little bit more? Now he's got diarrhea. Oh, God, Zach, please. He's out 4 to 7 days. It's not his fault. Okay. He's injured. That stinks, but definitely could have been worse. 4 to 7 days. Not too bad. Hopefully that's a little bit of time for him to reset there. But yeah, the Oilers, it's a little bit nasty over there. Darnell Nurse is close to returning, probably returning on Saturday. So that's good news. But Victor Arvidsson, see you at the party, Victor, but not the ice party, right? You see how I'm making the connection here, folks.
Excellent.
Thank you. Victor Arvidsson has been put on the IR, so yeah, just more minutes for guys like Jeff Skinner, Podkolzin out there, even Corey Perry. Some of these guys, their value is gonna go up just a bit there, but I don't know. Hopefully, it equals good things for guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. This guy's been ice cold. I don't know. We'll talk about the Oilers in a little bit. I could get in there. So, anyways, let's move on to Carolina. Nothing could be finer. Freddie Anderson is he's going to be out for a prolonged period here, 8 to 12 weeks. He had some surgery on his knee there, so yeah, he's already been out for a big portion of the season. It's Kochetkov time for sure. I think this guy's a must add at this point. If he's not already added, you got to have Kochetkov on a roster. He shouldn't be sitting on the wire at this point with the goalie environment there and just the team play in general with Carolina. So Kochetkov's going to get a lot of run, and he's a pretty damn good goalie, and I think he's upped his game a little bit this year as well. So anyways, that's the news on Anderson. Connor Ingram over at the Utah Hockey Club. He was hurt in Monday's game. So it's time to fire up vegetable lasagna. Karel Vejmelka, all right? He's a reasonable lad. Well, Ingram is out, but keep in mind, Utah Hockey Club, they're playing like hot garbage right now. The wheels are, they're kind of falling off a little bit. They started out so strong, and, all that hope's kind of going down the drain a little bit. So that said, I mean, Vejmelka, he's going to be a volume starter. He's going to get all those stats. So if you're in a Cats league, you're going to get saves. I mean, you could get some wins. Like, he hasn't played very well this year, but I don't know. It's just a guy that's going to get some run in the short term. So I think he's a reasonable add. And then lastly, Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks. He's going to be out for a month with a foot injury. So fire up the pickle. You got to pick up the pickle, Alex Vlasic, if you're looking for a power play one quarterback on a team that is not very good. All right. And that's my sell job for Alex Vlasic. Nate, you got it. We got to move on here. We got to talk about the next segment here. That just this schedule is so stinky. We got to attack it. We just got to go on the offensive and beat the hell out of the schedule. Talk to us about the schedule attack.
All right, let's attack that schedule for this week upcoming. We have Monday, 11 games, Tuesday, 2 games, Wednesday, 15 games, Thursday, American Thanksgiving, we have 0 games, Friday, 14 games, Saturday, 12 games, Sunday, 5 games. Yeah, what do we say about this? This is quite the week. It's 59 total games played. Super heavy week. Might be the heaviest week of the year, to be honest. I haven't cross-checked that information, so don't quote me to anybody, but it wouldn't surprise me. This is a pretty heavy week for sure. Obviously, they did some schedule contortions here to get this to work well with American Thanksgiving and probably not fight with football on American Thanksgiving for views, but it is what it is. We got to make the best of it. It's going to be rough, though. Hopefully, you can find either the Monday 11-game schedule or the Saturday 12-game schedule. You can find an open roster spot here or there, and you can kind of tailor your ads around where you might have an extra roster spot on one of those not quite as heavy game days. But yeah, no two ways about it. This is a pretty awful week for streaming. You only have 3 teams that have 2 off nights. Literally, like what we normally talk about here is we talk about any teams with a fun back-to-back to start the week, the Monday, Wednesday off nights, the Wednesday, Friday off nights, the Friday, Sunday off nights. Yeah, we have none of that. 0 teams with any of that this week. Pure insanity. Basically, yeah, you go for these 3 2x off night teams, Boston, Montreal, Vancouver. Pick one of them and then just start picking backup goalie starts that you like throughout the week. And that's how you use your ads this week, I think, in most cases. So it's definitely, yeah, it's going to be a week that you probably are not going to be able to influence your matchup as much as you want with your streaming ability. And so it's by that token, it's also a good week to maybe take a look ahead, look at where your roster needs to be upgraded. Yeah, maybe make some trades this week. If you trade away guys lower in your lineup, you can replace them with guys you pick up, and it's not actually going to hurt you for this week. You can pick up guys for next week ahead of time. There's definitely lots of ways to play a week like this, but just know that you're probably not going to have a huge effect on your outcome this week with your streaming ability. Anything to add, Blake?
It's, yeah, this is terrible, man. It's, yeah, honestly, this is one of those weeks that you're looking for a week-long stream and get what you can get. And then, yeah, like you said, streaming some goalies. I think that's a perfectly viable strategy, and then potentially look ahead to next week. So yeah, you covered it, my man.
All right. Well, then why don't you lead us in with some lowered expectations?
I don't think they could get any lower. All right. Damn. It's pretty damn stinky here this week, but that's fine. One thing I do want to say is, because we can't make such a difference on our teams with the streaming this week, hit us up, hit Nate and myself up for, sit start options. Like that's something that we'd love to help you with. Our Discord as well. Get in there. There's so much good information in there if you're having problems, because you are going to be benching players and it's going to hurt. You're going to be leaving points on the bench. So we want to minimize that as much as possible. But anyways, let's get into the worst teams to stream here. And there's two prime candidates, Edmonton Oilers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Both play 2 games with 0 off nights. So any streamers on these teams, it's going to be rough times, right? Let's start with Edmonton. They don't even play until Friday. They play a Friday, Saturday back-to-back. The Friday's a 14-gamer. The Saturday's a 12-gamer. What?
Yep.
I mean, God. I picked up Darnell Nurse for this week. He got injured, and now I have to deal with this crap. I just got to boot him to the curb. I like Darnell Nurse, all right? But not this week. He's terrible. He's the hell off my team. Anyways, we know the usual suspects there on Edmonton that are going to be your streamers. I think they're all drops, honestly. Besides, talk to me about Matthias Ekholm. Maybe Matthias Ekholm and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Those are 2 players that I think are certainly must roster players. But in a head-to-head weekly league, what are you doing with those players in particular, Nate?
Yeah, I think those are 2 guys that I'm hanging on to for sure. Nugent-Hopkins has shown some signs of life. The numbers underlying have come up a little bit as of late, and so that's a little bit encouraging. And he's still on that top power play.
Yeah.
He might never get, 51 power play points
50.
or whatever he had. Yeah, that was wild. That might never happen again, but yeah, I think you can probably expect that he should get somewhere around 30, and that should lead to a pretty good result at the end of the season. Going to be hard, obviously, to hit his initial projections with the start that he's had, but as a point pace from here on out, wouldn't surprise me if he did just fine and came close to our initial projections there. Matthias Ekholm, underlying stats look good. 39th shots per 60, 14th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 7th on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60 amongst all defensemen. I know he doesn't have a point in 5 games, but I'm hanging on to Matthias Ekholm in pretty much all my spots.
Sweet. Well, I hope I play you when you have these guys in your lineup, Nate. That sounds excellent. I'm going to go get me some Nikita Zadorov and take it to the bank, buddy. Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that later. Anyways, Edmonton, I think anybody besides those players, they're drops to me. Jeff Skinner included, Darnell Nurse included. Get the hell off my squad. All right. And then Toronto, we got some interesting options there. Matthew Nyes, obviously he's injured. We have to see what's going on there. If you got an IR plus spot, just throw him in there. No problem. But other than that, I don't see how you can hold him, especially if he's injured, and you can't take zeros, especially in this week. So OEL as well. He was battling an illness, so he's still showing day-to-day on Yahoo, but we'll see if he gets into the lineup. But again, why the hell are we holding on to him? Max Domi is injured, right? I didn't check to see how long he's injured for, Max Domi. Do you have any word on him, Nate?
I didn't see an update, to be honest with you. I could do a quick Twitter search, but
maybe take a quick look there on Max Domi. Maximus Domius, I know he is battling some injury as well. It's going to be hard to hold any of these guys. So anyone below that level, I think you're bumping off your team. Anybody on the Leafs, including your buddy Alex Nylander, that you're interested in holding in this garbage week where actually the Leafs do play. They play the 15-game Wednesday and then the 12-game Saturday. Jeez.
So it's obviously not a good spot. Domi has not been ruled out for Sunday, so he might be back sooner rather than later. If you don't have an IR spot to put Nyes, then I think you definitely drop him. OEL should be back, but I think he's definitely droppable as well. There's nobody, obviously the top guys, you're hanging on to all of them. Matthews probably in your IR spot right now. Marner, Nylander, I have to clarify William Nylander now. John Tavares and Morgan Riley, you're hanging on to all of those guys through a week like this, but everybody else can go.
There you go. Tough for the Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs streams. Let's move on to some other stinky teams. The Buffalo Sabres, Pittsburgh Penguins, and the St. Louis Blues all play 3 games with 0 off nights. And obviously these off nights are at a premium this week. So let's start in Buffalo. Some interesting players here. JJ Paterka makes this list, but for me personally, like Paterka is a must hold. You're not dropping Paterka there. I think he's good enough to get into your lineup on those days, most likely. But yeah, Owen Power, he's got 2 assists here tonight, which is Friday. Like this guy's actually doing stuff out there. I don't know. Like if he's not making your roster there, like he's not a hold. I think you could probably drop Owen Power and pick him up again later. That's my thought there. But Bo Byram, Dylan Cousins, Jason Zucker, who I picked up for Cupful, and he's got me 2 goals in 2 games. Stream of the year. All right. I'm loving that right there. But talk to me about Power, talk to me about Byram, and talk to me about Cousins and what you're doing there, how you're approaching those players.
Yeah, I think they can all probably be dropped. I don't think you have to, especially if you're only running 4D, right? And Power or Byram are like your 4th D. Yeah, you might have forwards that are lower on your depth chart that aren't going to play that week. You might have other priorities, basically, in terms of who to drop or other moves you might want to make. So you definitely can hang on to them through this week if that's your situation. But if you have 5D and they're not getting into your lineup any night, like, yeah, what are we doing here? You can drop Owen Power, you can drop Owen Byram, and you're not going to feel too bad about it. Dylan Cousins, I like Cousins. Yeah, I like what Zucker's been doing recently as
Yep.
well. But both of those guys, I would at least consider dropping. I mean, it's so hard for me to roster a guy if he's not making my lineup, and there's a pretty good chance that those guys are not in your starting lineup any night. If that's the case, then yeah, I think I would be willing to let both of those guys go.
Yeah, these are the type of players that they're fringe players. They're true fringe players where, yeah, it doesn't really hurt that much to drop them, right? Because you can find players that can replace their production to some degree. So, anyways, I agree with you there. Let's move over to Pittsburgh. Man, this team is it's a rough watch there in Pittsburgh right now. I feel for Crosby. I really do. I love Crosby, actually. And I love Chris Letang as well. And Chris Letang is making this list just because he's putting up just donuts out there. Nothing. He came back to the lineup here tonight and played 20 minutes, did absolutely jack squat. Chris Letang, buddy, what are you doing out there? So I don't know. Yeah, Chris Letang is on this list just as a bubble player. Brian Rust. So another player that, yeah, we like here at Apples and Ginos for sure. He's got 3 points in his last 5 games, so that's nice. Good deployment and stuff. I don't know. I'm probably trying to hold on to Rust. Ricard Raquel, I don't think I'm not too interested in Raquel there. And then the bunt cake, Michael Bunting, get the hell off my team, buddy. That's you're on notice. All right, talk to me about at least Brian Rust and Raquel. How are you approaching them? And throw Letang in there too. What are you doing with those players?
Yeah, I think Letang falls under the same category as Power and Byram to me at this point. Um, I don't I don't honestly know if
Yep.
we're seeing kind of the end of Letang as an elite level offensive talent, at least for NHL purposes. I'm not really sure if we're there yet, but the results have not been good. He's coming off of injury, and if he's not making your lineup, then there's probably something you can do with that roster spot that'll be better than what he's able to offer when he is able to get back into your lineup. So that's where I'm at with Letang. Russ, I am trying to hold on to. I think anybody who's listened to Apples and Ginos through the offseason knows that I had a pretty big projection on Brian Rust. I still think that he's fully capable of getting to a 65 plus point pace. Even in this current edition of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who
Yep.
can't buy a goal, he did get an assist in this game here on Friday on the lone Penguins goal. But I am trying to hang on to Rust just because I think there's actually like decent upside still with Rust, just with the sheer amount of minutes this guy plays for them every single night. Raquel, I'm probably willing to move off of. He is in a good spot in terms of the Crosby line and the top power play, but I'm again not super convinced that that lasts for all that long, especially if they're getting results like the result they got tonight. So I think Rust, I'm trying to hang on to. Letang, to me, falls into a category where I don't feel like I have to move off of him, similar to Power and Byram, but if I am not going to play him, then I'm willing to drop him, and Raquel as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Maybe a couple tough decisions there, but yeah, I'm with you on Russ. That's the player I'm looking to hold out of those studs. Last team here with 3 games and 0 off nights. It's the St. Louis Blues. They play Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. It's so weird that Monday and Wednesday are busy nights. They're heavy nights. An 11-game Monday and a 15-game Wednesday. Good God, that's terrible. But yeah, it is what it is. So St. Louis to me is a lot easier. You got Colton Parayko, Pavel Buchnevich, Justin Falk, Braden Shen, Jake Neighbors. Hey, neighbor. Is there any one of those 5 players that is a priority for you to hold currently during this 3-game week?
I don't know if it's a priority necessarily, but the 2 guys that I'm most interested in holding are Pavel Buchnevich and Justin Falk. I know the Falk one is going to come as a surprise to a lot of people. Maybe the Buchnevich one too. I'm not sure. But Falk's underlying numbers are pretty good. Still top power play. Still 22 and a half plus minutes a night. 28th in shots per 60. 23rd individual scoring chances 4 per 60. 67th on ice Corsi 4 per 60. 43rd on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. He is honestly one of the few Blues actually doing stuff right now. Yeah, kind of exceeding his environment right now. I actually think Justin Falk, from a fantasy standpoint, is playing really well right now. Not being rewarded for it on the actual score sheet, but that'll come. So I'm actually pretty interested in hanging on to Justin Falk at this exact moment. Pavel Buchnevich, just because we've seen the proof of concept so many times before. Rob Thomas came back, so that's back in the lineup. That should obviously help everyone in St. Louis to score more points, Buchnevich included. So Buchnevich is one that I'd hold. Colton Parayko has had a really nice start to the season. He's playing a ridiculous amount of minutes, 27 plus in the last 5. But the underlying metrics are not there. He's kind of just run really hot, 65% IPP on the season. That's going to come down probably almost in half for Colton Parayko. So yeah, I think Parayko I'd be willing to let go of again if he's not going to be in my lineup most nights. And then Braden Shen and Jake Neighbors are, guys I'm fully willing to drop at this point.
There you go. You heard it here first, folks. Let's move on. There are 3 teams that play 3 games with 1 off night. Maybe I should mention those teams. Sure, I'll do that. That's the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Utah. I want to say the Utah Saints. That's a group that existed in the 90s. Nate, do you remember that decade, the 90s?
Barely. I was very young, Blake.
Okay, God. Well, just, you know what? Get on your Spotify, type in Utah Saints, and just enjoy the ride, buddy. All right? Anyways, talking about the Utah Hockey Club. Yeah, all those teams have 3 games with 1 off night, so we're not going to go through the players there. Again, those off nights are key. So I don't know. I would even endorse a couple 1-game streams if you have to, right? Like this is a week where, if you're scratching and clawing to do that is an option. It's not a great option, but I mean, it's there as well. And then there are 16 teams that play 4 games with 0 off nights. That's insane. That's the type of week we're dealing with here. So, you're gonna have to make some decisions, right? Obviously, hit us up, if you got any questions about that type of stuff. But we're not gonna go through all those 16 teams, buddy. We got to get to the good stuff here. We got to cross the streams. We got we got to do that. This is our segment where we talk about the best teams to stream, and honestly, crossing the streams. That's the age-old rite of passage for best friends to connect. All right, and just feel like men. All right, it's a lovely, lovely time, isn't it, Nate?
Yeah, it's nearly spiritual in a way, wouldn't you say, Blake?
Yeah, transcendent.
Yes,
absolutely, buddy. And one of the things too that I like to do. First off, one of the best times to cross the streams is actually the winter time, right? And I'll give you the thought process here. It's first, when you're outside, you get that really steamy stream, right? Like, and that's kind of fun. That's just a little piece of fun, due to the cold air outside. And then second, you can be really creative. Like, just picture a beautiful field covered in powder, right? You head out there with your best friend and you just create. You know what I mean? Like last time, Nate, you'll back me up on this. We crossed the stream in the snow. We kept it really simple, but at the end of the day, we were just staring out at a beautiful yellow heart with the initials N and B inside. And it was just lovely, right? I mean, that's recommended. I think that, if you have the opportunity, it's just one of those things in life you don't want to miss out on, right? So, I mean, fantasy hockey or no fantasy hockey, this is living. Am I right, Nate?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, there's just something so poetic about it because you know it'll pass away, but it'll become something new in the future as well, and you'll be able to cross the streams and create new memories. So yeah, to create something like that with your best friend is just yeah, it's a moment you don't forget very easily.
Oh, buddy, this is good stuff. Just don't eat it, folks. Okay, that's really, I mean, that's the disclaimer. We'll put that out there. That's common sense, but maybe not for everybody. Anyways, buddy, we got to talk about the best teams to stream. I'm digressing here, but I'm very passionate about crossing streams, as you know. All right. There are really only three teams that we're looking at getting players from here: Boston, Montreal, and Vancouver. Just horrible. Like two of those teams are freaking horrible. They don't, like their Corsi for percentages are in like the bottom quarter of the league. And I'm talking about Boston and Montreal, just really having a tough time generating offense. But I don't know, in Boston, it's kind of an interesting situation with the new coach there. We don't quite know what to expect, but yeah, it's still the same roster construction. So anyways, I can talk about Boston later. Let's get into, first off, their schedule. So Boston plays Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. So their off nights are the Tuesday and Sunday there. And with Boston, like we got it. Elias Lindholm or Elias Lindholm, I don't know which one it is, and I'm going to be honest about that. We got to have him rostered. He's got to be on it. He's got to be on a squad. So Elias Lindholm, definite must roster player for this week. Nikita Zadorov is out there. Pavel Zacha. I mean, talk to me about Boston, Nate, and just any of the players that you're looking at streaming in this week.
Yeah, so obviously Lindholm has been dropped in a lot of places, and I mean, I'm not gonna shame anybody for dropping Elias Lindholm. He's been pretty terrible this year so far
Yeah.
for what you expected. Um, yeah, so he's down to 48% roster on Yahoo at the moment, but probably in the most active leagues, it's actually less than that, right? Because he's been actively dropped by some people. Yeah, I think like you gotta think about this with the new coach there, and just think that new things are possible. So some aspect of what we know about this team is no longer true for sure. That just has to be true with the new coach. Something is changing mentally for the players, physically in the way they make some changes to the system, some tweaks to the system. It probably won't be like crazy stuff overnight, but definitely things are changing. And so, hopefully, in a case like Lindholm, where things have gone pretty terribly so far, that means that things are going to change in a positive direction. That's what we hope for fantasy anyway. And I think this is a good time if he has been dropped in your league. You have the best schedule that you can pretty much get out of any team this week. This is a good time to go ahead and try it out with Lindholm this week and see if across these 4 games he manages to put something together and give you some idea of what could be a better future for him.
Yep.
There are like, if you're in a really deep league, you can go further down. I mean, Zaka for sure, playing again with Pasternak, even strength and power play for sure. Zaka makes some sense as a stream this week. Zadorov is obviously your bangers stream. Not much value in a points league, but in a bangers league, lots of value there, especially for hits. But Zaka there, and then if you do want to get further down the lineup, like in the last game, they played Marchand Lindholm and Justin Brazeau up on that line. They played Morgan Geekie on the Zaka Pasternak line. You can go down to Charlie Coyle. Trent Frederick has actually been one of the guys who hasn't been too terrible this year. Yeah, it gets ugly. I'm not saying these are great options by any stretch of the imagination, but there are at least some stories you can tell yourself in which at least one of these guys has a good week, and specifically has good games on those off nights that you can actually fit them in your lineup. Yeah, in active leagues, I think a lot of these guys are actually going to be rostered just because this is the only one of only 3 teams that actually have the off nights that you're going to need to get them into your lineup. So yeah, it's not exciting. Lindholm and Zaka, I'm actively interested in. You can take some flyers on any of the other guys, but it is just a flyer and you have to accept that.
Yep, absolutely. Give me a quick take here of some of those really fringe guys, Nate. Who are you sort of prioritizing there? Like, let's talk Morgan Geekie, Justin Brazeau, the Coiler, Charlie Coyle. I mean, what do you think about those three? How are you sort of ranking them?
Yeah, I'd want to see the deployment again hold. If it holds for any of these guys, like if Morgan Geekie stays on the Pasternak line, would be the best thing there. Last 5 games, 25th in the league in individual scoring chances for per 60. Actually, he's got good underlying numbers there.
Yep.
Yeah, the results have not been there, but yeah, if he does stay on that line, then that would probably be my preference of those guys. Justin Brazeau has decent underlying stats as well. So if he stays on the the Marchand Lindholm line, then that could be of interest as well. Charlie Coyle has, yeah, fully given back all of that regression he had coming to him for all of last year, and it's just been awful for him so far this year. And I'm not excited about it still, so that's where I'm at.
You know what it is, buddy? He needs more fiber. All right. He needs something, right? He needs to girth up those solid tubular logs and just fill that bowl, my man. What are you doing, Charlie Coyle? You know what? I feel like it's going to be a good week for the Coiler. He's going to fill the bowl again. And yeah, I don't know. I do like Morgan Geekie, though. I think that's the player of interest for me. Because it's just when you go to your waiver wire, and especially in competitive leagues, these are the guys that are going to be there. You know what I mean? You're not going to get Elias Lindholm. Right. So, yeah, I think that's a conversation worth having. Anyway, let's move on to the next team, which is going to be the Montreal Canadiens. And yeah, the Canadiens actually, I think, are a little bit better offensively, weirdly, than the Boston Bruins, which makes no sense. Right. I mean, they're terrible defensively, but we've got some options there. We got guys like Lane Hutson out there who's quarterbacking power play 2, moonlighting on power play 1 occasionally. He's an exciting offensive player, terrible defensive player. We know this. You want to get a beefer. You got Caden Goulet out there. Goulet, you me staring contest. So, yeah, that's Robert Goulet, Will Ferrell. Anybody making that connection? I don't know. It's a terrible impression. Kirby Dach, I think that guy should be a priority for you for this team. I like him pretty much better than any of the Montreal streamers there. He's getting power play 1. He's getting, top line deployment there. So Kirby Dach is a decent option. And then Brendan Gallagher, is that where we're at right now, Nate? Like, I mean, just talk to me about the Canadiens. Just kind of pump me up a little bit on these guys.
I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, it's not a good scene for sure, especially offensively. Like, actually, I was just looking at their 5v5 numbers. This is on Natural Stat Trick. You can look. I usually go back the past 2 weeks when I'm looking at team stats on Natural Stat Trick. And right now I'm looking at the 5v5 score and venue adjusted stats, which give you a little bit more of an idea. Typically third periods, if you're up by 2 goals, you do like this defensive shell. And so you actually end up giving up a lot of chances, but in theory, you give up less scoring chances. And so sometimes that skews it a bit if you have multiple of those games in a short time window like this. But if you get that adjusted, which this formula tries to do, then you can see that the Canadiens have like a decent Corsi 4 percentage, but they're still not generating anything. It's just that they've actually been
chucking pucks,
halfway decent defensively over at 5v5 over the last 5 games here. So yeah, I'm not excited about what they bring to the table offensively for us in fantasy. I do agree, like if you're going with a guy, Kirby Dach has to be that guy, right? Top line with Suzuki, top power play. That's as good as it gets, really, in Montreal as far as deployment's concerned. Lane Hutson, yeah, you can take that swing. Caden Goulet if you're in a bangers league or you have strong bangers weight in your points league. And then Brendan Gallagher, like if you have to go deep, like if you're in a spot where you have to go deep with your streamer, you can do worse than Brendan Gallagher. He's got 2 goals, 3 points his last 5. He's not getting a lot of minutes, 14 and a half minutes a night. But he did, get under the 100 rank, 95th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 over the last 5 games. So there is that. I'm not excited about it, but he could pop a couple goals for you, and it wouldn't be the most shocking thing. So that's why I threw Gallagher in there at the end.
Gallagher. Oh, my God. Do you remember that comedian from the 70s? Gallagher, he had like an insane skullet. Do you know what a skullet is, Nate?
I know what a skullet is, but I'm curious as to why you think I'd know a comedian from the 70s.
Well, I mean, come on. It's vintage, all right? Isn't that, what you kids talk about these days? Anyways, this guy used to bring a watermelon on stage and just smash it with a hammer. That was like his shtick. Anyways, that's what I think of when I hear Gallagher. Gallagher. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody just Google some Gallagher highlights and just enjoy the show, all right? It's horrible. All right. No one wants to watch Gallagher. All right. And what's with that haircut? I mean, he woke up every morning and looked at himself in the mirror and he's like, yep, this is how I'm gonna attack the day. Like, buddy, get a freaking razor and sort it out, or get a wig. Anyways, let's move on. The next team that we like, well, I like all the time, but this week we like them especially, the Vancouver Canucks. They've got 4 games and 2 off nights as well. They play a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, then they play Friday, then they play Sunday. So great back half. Well, who cares? What am I even talking about? Just pick up some Vancouver players and hang on to them all week. So let's talk about some of the players there on Vancouver. Phil Hronik is out there. I mean, he's 54% rostered on Yahoo. This is a must-roster player for this upcoming week. He's not doing a ton out there. There's no question about that. But, like, you know, who cares, right? He's getting a ton of minutes. The on-ice numbers are really good. I'll let you talk about that, Nate. But, yeah, he's doing stuff out there. You could do a lot worse. But who I'm really interested in, Kiefer, a.k.a. Beefer Sherwood. Buddy. This guy, holy man. First off, dual eligibility. I love that. Listen to some of these box scores. I mean, he's got points in 3 straight. So he's got 3 points in 3 games. His last game, he got a goal, 7 shots, 10 hits. Okay, the game before that, a goal, 1 shot, 5 hits. Like, he's doing this on the regular. This guy's insane. He's leading the league in hits. So, of course, he should be rostered anyway in a bangers league. Nate famously told everyone to drop him last week. Even in a bangers league, no. All right, you don't do that, Nate. You don't drop B for. I was going to say B for Sutherland. I'm all over the place here, but yeah, Kiefer Sherwood going to be a great stream for you this week because he's actually doing things offensively as well. You know, with all the injuries that the Canucks have, Sherwood's actually playing on a line with Jake DeBrusk and Elias Pettersson right now. That's the top line in Vancouver. That's the state of affairs over here. You know, and he's getting power play too as well. So he's a great player for this week in particular. So shout out to him. Also, Jake DeBrusk, yeah, probably should be rostered. Connor Garland, definitely. I love Connor Garland this year. This guy is incredible. If you need something out there like a spark, he goes and does it. You need some offense, he goes and generates it. He's a really fun player, and I maintain if this guy was like a 1.5 feet taller, he'd be elite. Right, he'd be like an elite player in the NHL, but no,
1.5 taller.
Yeah, no, he's like a little fire hydrant. He doesn't, you know, he's just out there just pissing people off, nipping at their ankles and stuff. And then Dakota Joshua is back, and that's a great thing for the Canucks in general. But again, Cats League beauty, and I think he should be rostered in all formats for this upcoming week. He could definitely do stuff and has some good chemistry with Connor Garland. So, talk to me about how you're ranking these Canucks streamers, Nate.
Yeah, it's interesting right now for sure. I'm not a true believer in Kiefer Sherwood, but definitely gives you value with the hits, and the shots as of late have been pretty good, and obviously the deployment now is coming along with that. So not averse to that at all. DeBrusk has some halfway decent underlying numbers for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
40th in individual scoring chances, 4/60 over the last 5 here. So that's something to monitor. Garland's the one with actually the worst metrics, but the most ice time over the last 5 here. Joshua has not looked good under the hood since returning. Basically more of a banger league streamer for me. That's where I'm at with that. Philip Hronik, yeah, you could run into a few assists there. You could hope for that. It's not the worst thing you could do, especially if the other guys are not there. I just want to preach a little bit of caution with assuming, you know, that DeBrusk is going to be on the top power play and the top line, or Sherwood is. Like, this could all change before next week, before we get there, especially since if you're looking at it, like, if you're picking these guys up for the off nights, you're picking them up for the Tuesday off night and the Sunday off night. By the time we get to Sunday, December 1st, I'm pretty sure these lines are going to be mixed up again. So, yeah, factor that in, and yeah, just be aware that a lot of this will change. For that reason, like, Connor Garland is probably the safest guy because you feel good that he's going to get minutes at least, regardless of who he lines up alongside. So for that reason, I think Garland might actually be the safest.
Yep. One thing for sure, like, you know, Besser, if he does come back next week, it's not going to be Garland that's bumped off power play 1. It's going to be Jake DeBrusk. Right. You know, the Canucks top prospect, Jonathan Lecker-Maggie, he got sent down and he's going to stay down. So he was on power play 1 as well. So there's a spot there. You just got to keep an eye on the Canucks roster game to game here. But yeah, that's a really good point. What do they look like on Sunday? Like that's where you're going to be able to use that streamer. So yeah, we're gonna have to think ahead and outside the box and try and extrapolate some stuff. But I think what you said makes sense. Garland is definitely the safest stream of the Canucks. So there you go. And you need Kiefer Sherwood on your team. All right, just do it. This guy's a machine. All right. There are 5 teams with 4 games and 1 off night. So again, off nights premium, broken record over here. But those teams are the Anaheim Ducks, Dallas Stars, Detroit Red Wings, the Ottawa Senators, and the wagon that is the Winnipeg Jets. What have you noticed that every single game that Hellebuck plays, it's like a shutout watch? And have you noticed that we're playing against them like every single week? I feel like it's been 4 straight weeks where I'm up against Hellebuck, and it's like, come on, man! Like, just get a goal on this guy early. He's amazing. So, I mean, whatever. I don't know, but let's start in Anaheim before I wax poetic on Winnipeg here. But yeah, we got our boys here in Anaheim. If you had them in for this week, you can hold on to those streamers, right? Guys like Zegras, Leo Carlson, Olin Zellweger. You got another week of him probably holding on there. Radko Gudas, if you're looking for bangs. Troy Terry as well, right? Hasn't done too much here in the last games, which is really unfortunate. But the other guys have sort of been cooking. Cutter Gauthier, finally, he's got off the schneid here. A couple goals in as many games here. Alex Killorn, Ryan Strome, Pavel Mintyukov. Talk to me about how you're ranking these Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just want to say, like, for all of these 5 teams, the off night is all on the Sunday. So, like, it's not necessarily a full week stream unless, like, you can fit them in on the Monday or somewhere else throughout the week.
God, I didn't even notice that.
So, yeah, just be conscious of that when you're thinking about who you might pick up here and how they actually fit in your lineup. That being said, like, I'm always going to have time for Troy Terry, regardless of what he's done most recently. Olin Zellweger, I'll continue to sing his praises. He's got 5 points his last 5 games. Another assist here tonight in this game against Buffalo. Underlying metrics look good. Yeah, it's hard to be angry at what he's putting on the board right now. Cutter Gauthier has finally started scoring goals, but the metrics have started to dip a little bit.
Yeah.
So go figure. Alex Killorn randomly has 5 points in his last 5 games. The metrics are just okay. I think you know who Alex Killorn is if you're going to roster him. Ryan Strome is on the top power play unit, which is a little bit more of a top power play unit than it has been in gone by eras, I guess. Under Greg Cronin, they've prioritized it just a little bit more than we're used to. It's not a true 50-50 anymore. It's more like a 55-45.
Thank you, Greg Cronin.
We'll take it, right? So Strome, Vetrano, Terry, and Carlson are on that unit currently, with Zellweger on the back end. So yeah, you could give those guys a little bit of a boost mentally if you're looking at streamers there. I think that makes some sense. I gotta say though, Leo Carlson's metrics look horrible as of late, like bottom of the league, kind of horrible. He's got 4 points his last 5, but I don't know how much I'm willing to trust that given how bad the metrics are.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, just one of those players too, though. When you watch, like if you rewind back from goals, it's like he's doing stuff out there, but it's not equaling like the metrics that we look at, So yeah, it's not really something that I want to trust either, right? Like we need people that are actually producing, not people that are, setting up the production, maybe, right? Which is kind of what Leo Carlson is. So anyways, right now that's what he is, but I like the player a lot. Anyways, let's move on over to Dallas. Lots of interesting pieces there. I was just looking at their rostership here on Yahoo, like Mason Marchment is 62% rostered. Sheesh. This is crazy stuff that in Dallas. Like their top 3 scorers are Mason Marchment, Tyler Seguin, and frickin' Matt Duchene. I mean, geez, that's the state there. But what's going on in Dallas? But anyways, lots of options there still. Like Jamie Benn is 51% rostered. Put some stank on it. Logan Stankoven, he's out there. Tyler Seguin. Talk to me about the stars here and the players that you're sort of targeting on Dallas.
Yeah, I think it's Stankoven and Seguin for sure, the top 2 guys there. In the last game, Dodonov got pushed down to the bottom line, and in true Dallas fashion, at even strength, that was the line that got the most ice time.
Of course.
Yeah, I still don't like the line because it's Sam Steele and it's Oscar Back that he's playing with, and that's obviously not a recipe for success long term. But yeah, I think Sagan and Stankoven are definitely the top guys if they're available, depending on your league, obviously. If you got to go down the lineup, then yeah, you can look at Dodonov, but probably I'd prefer actually Maverick Bork, who's given a chance with the Stankoven and Ben in the last game, and his underlying metrics actually look pretty good. So if that deployment continues, then I would give a look to Maverick Bork.
No, I like that a lot. Yeah, just this team is such a head scratcher. You know, it's funny to me. Mason Marchment, 62% rostered. I feel like in the leagues I'm in, he's available. So I feel like maybe the more competitive leagues, he's not as highly rostered. And like in the maybe I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like because he was on such a heater, people are like, oh, I got to pick him up, you know, and like maybe a different kind of league. Whereas like, yeah, he's still just available in a lot of the leagues I'm in. So I picked him up in 2 and I'm holding and I don't give a damn. I like Mason Marchment, but yeah, I just want a piece of that second line. They're going nuts this year. Anywho, let's move on to the next team. It's Detroit. Oh God, they actually have streamers on this team. Vladimir Tarasenko, Nate's favorite player from 3 years ago. Okay, Simon Edmondson, JT Compher. What say you, Nate?
Yeah, nothing here is exciting for sure. Tarasenko's got 4 points in his last 5. Edvinsson has 3 in his last 4. Metrics aren't horrible with Tarasenko, but he's under 14 minutes average time on ice. Like, you got to be pretty desperate to get this low. Edvinsson, yeah, if you need a defenseman, you can do worse, I would say. He's not going to be on the top power play anytime soon, but he's good enough at even strength, getting over 20 minutes a night just doing that. So, yeah, if you need a guy who blocks a lot and occasionally factors in on the offense, then Edvinsson fits the bill there.
Yep, absolutely. Next team up here, Ottawa. Again, the 4 games with 1 off night on the Sunday. Josh Norris still out there. This guy's only 32% rostered. Yeah, I'm still interested in Norris there, but it's going to be tough. I'm not sure he's going to get in on those other busy nights besides that 1 off night. You got the Pinto Bean. Shane Pinto is out there. David Perron is back off injury, doing not a lot. Ridley Grieg, geez, this is what you call the bottom of the barrel, folks. Anybody like are you taking a ride with Norris this week? Do you think Norris would make your lineup in a busy week like this?
Yeah, obviously it's going to depend team to team, how deep your league is, etc. But yeah, Norris's underlying metrics have not really looked good at any point in the season. 22% shooting percentage on the season is how he's gotten to where he's gotten to. That being said, he's still getting 19 minutes a game. You got to love that. Shane Pinto, I want to see, though. If Norris does go cold, Shane Pinto could take a few of those minutes and wouldn't surprise me. 83rd shots per 60, 78th individual scoring chances for per 60 last 5 games. Just has no points to show for it. So keep an eye out for that. It's not really, I would say, actionable advice to like immediately go out and grab Shane Pinto for his 1 off night next week. But just a note that I wanted to make in passing.
Also, shout out to Adam Gaudette, the hockey god. This guy, who does he think he is? Jack Roslovic? He's got 8 goals and 1 assist. He's doing stuff out there. That same advice applies. Do not go out and pick up Adam Gaudette for the 1 off night. But I don't know. Maybe on Sunday you're hurting. There's no one available, and Gaudette's staring you in the face. You could do worse. All right, this guy, all he does is score goals. All right, that's what he does. And I also. There's a funny video of Adam Gaudette out there. I remember when he played for the Canucks, it was his wedding, and he was doing that dance where, like the bride's sitting on the chair and you do the garter, right? And you get the garter off and you give it to your friend or whatever. But he was doing a dance with her, and he tried to do like a roundhouse kick over her head, but he actually kicked her right in the head. And it's all on video, like a straight roundhouse to the side of the head at his wedding day. Definitely Google that. Shout out to Adam Gaudette. That memory will live on forever. And so will, his 8 goals in 18 games. This man's a beauty. All right. Anyways, that's it for Adam Gaudette. That's more that we've talked about Adam Gaudette than probably any fantasy hockey pod out there. That's confirmed. That's what we do here at Apples and Ginos. All right. We go deep. Okay. Last team here. We got to talk about the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, get yourself a piece of these Jets, folks. They're blasting off to space. Gabe Vilardi somehow still available out there. This is a must roster player, regardless of the week. I think Vilardi is actually making your probably your team there on some of those busy nights. So check that out. Nino Niederreiter. Yeah, he's doing stuff again, tooting in our faces. He's on all of our opponents' teams, getting random goals while we're trying to win our matchups. Cole Perfetti, Mom Spaghetti's out there. Vlad Nemenstikov, Adam Lowry, Dylan DeMello. Talk to me about your Jets here, Nate.
Yeah, Velarde ticked up just over the 50% mark that we usually cut off at. He's at 51%. Probably just people picking up for the off night here, and then he'll probably be back down again come tomorrow. But yeah, obviously he's the guy to get if there is one from this team. I still like Perfetti as a player, but clearly he was super hot before, and now he's super cold, and things are just kind of evening out for him a little bit. Niederreiter, like he had one of his patented hot streaks, and now he's in one of his equally patented cold streaks. This is what this player does every single year, so I'm not interested in him while he's not actually firing a ton of shots and scoring a ton of goals, which is where we're at currently in the Nino Niederreiter cycle. Nemesnikov, Lowry, these are real deep options if you really got to scratch the bottom of the barrel there. Yeah, I guess I would go Nemestikov just for the Ehlers exposure.
There you go. And while we're on it, shout out to Ehlers. All right. It's happening, buddy. We're only 20 games in, but Ehlers is on a 94-point pace.
Let's go.
Let's go. He's 16 minutes average time on ice. Scott Arniel, can you help us out? Like, let's break some records. All right. This man could get 200 points in a season. Book it. All right. That's confirmed. This man's elite. Anyways, that's that. All right, we gotta move on here. That's it for those teams. Nate, talk to us about the Apples and Geno's Patreon. That's our bread and butter. That's where we make our money.
That's for sure. Supporter tier $2 a month gets you access to patron only live shows. There will be another one coming up shortly in December here. Apple's tier $8 a month, all supporter level perks. So the patron only live shows gets you access to the patron only Discord channels, as well gets you the show notes for episodes such as this one, and also gets you the Apples and Geno's player evaluation tool, which is what Blake and I are using to bring you all the stats when we need to. For the true degenerates out there, the Geno's tier exists. $15 a month gets you all those perks, plus every single question answered, guaranteed by yours truly. Blake, it's time for the Dream Streams.
Light the candle!
All right, let's light the candle and talk about Elias Lindholm and Pavel Zacha. Let's go. Yeah, so this is where I rank the best players to stream, and yeah, this is where we're at, folks. Top of the list: Elias Lindholm, Pavel Zacha. Then the next couple are the Vancouver power play 1 guys, so Garland, DeBrusk makes some sense there for me. Kirby Doc, Kiefer Sherwood makes the list. Lane Hudson makes the list. Brendan Gallagher makes the list at 8th, and at 9th, I wrote in here Gag Me with a Spoon. This is like, I don't know, there's a How I Met Your Mother episode. How I Met Your Mother doesn't really stand up over time, I will say, but I used to be super into that show.
Never seen it, actually. Never seen that. What is that? How I Met Your Mother?
How I Met Your Mother. Yeah. Anyway, there's one episode I remember where he's this guy and his friend, they go to the bar and the guy disappears and they figure, oh, he's like had too much. He went home to like go to sleep basically. But he comes back and basically he went somewhere and threw up and then rallied, and they're like super pumped that he rallied and came back. He's like, he rallies. So this is what we're going to have to do this week, folks. At some point in the week, you're going to look at your lineup and you're going to see all the points that you left on your bench and you're going to hurl, but we got to rally. So that's my advice for us this week.
That's profound. I love that.
Blake, you got anything else to say about this? Like, would you reorder this list in any way? Would you prioritize anybody differently?
I like Garland over Zacha, honestly, but that's nitpicky, but I just like Garland. Oh, baby, he's so good.
You've never once talked about Garland, so that's really shocking.
I got to keep some things to myself, Nate. I'm trying to win some leagues out here. All right, I got Garland on 9 teams, folks. All right.
That's the least shocking thing I've ever heard. It's not something you ever talk about. So, for hits for bangers leagues, Kiefer Sherwood obviously top of the list. Mark Kastelik is actually pretty underrated. I think if you look at his hit totals, you will be surprised. Dakota Joshua has come back with a vengeance
Oh
here.
yeah.
Nikita Zadorov, obviously a big time banger. Josh Anderson has actually been throwing the body a lot as of late, so that's another way you could look. On the block side, Brendan Carlo getting some more minutes, I believe, with Lindholm out of the lineup, and he blocks a lot, so that's obviously a good spot for him to add to his totals. David Savard, big time blocker. Caden Goulet, as I mentioned, good bangers asset there with a little bit of offensive upside for the Canadians. Tyler Myers, Carson Soucy, more towards the bottom of the list there. Anybody that you want to mention, or do you want to wax poetic about Kiefer Sherwood one more time, Blake?
I don't think I need to. His play speaks for itself. But I do want to shout out Brandon Carlo for the blocks there. If anybody wants to know what my hairline actually looks like, go over to Yahoo and take a look at Brandon Carlo's headshot. That's what I see when I look in the mirror. All right. And I feel good about that. I'm a 44-year-old man and I'm hanging on.
All right. Well, let's move over to hold me. These are the players that we would like to hold if they would allow it. Obviously, consent is important, but we would very much like to hold these players. Number one on the list, Brian Rust here. Alex Laferriere and Gabe Velarde did dip below 50% rostered here. Velarde, as I mentioned, just went back up, but I imagine he'll be back down after this game here on the Friday off night. So yeah, those are definitely a couple of guys that you could look at. Laferriere's deployment hasn't really changed all that much. So yeah, if you were into Alex Laferriere at any point in this season so far, I think you still should be. Logan Stankoven, for sure, still on the list. Lots of guys that we've talked about before. I'm not going to get into too many details, but Marchenko, Norris, Terry, still like Byfield. Underlying numbers have been not so bad for Byfield and has had some like big minute games as well, which is good to see. The results haven't been there, but I do think they will come at some point. I did throw in Lindholm here because I do think he has upside. Sometimes it just takes a while to mesh with the new team. That could be the case here with Lindholm. We'll see. But yeah, I think I would be interested in him if he was dropped in a fair number of leagues, especially with the coaching change now, as I mentioned before.
Yep.
Sean Monahan, fresh off that big game on Thursday night. Stefan Nason, Casey Middlestat, Nick Schmaltz, I'm still holding the candle for, even as he sewers me in the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. Ryan O'Reilly, Matthew Nyes, obviously, once he returns from injury. Tyler Seguin, you can't ignore the kind of scoring chances this guy's producing. Dorofiev, Cooley, and Eklund towards the bottom of the list. Highlight a player from here, Blake. Who are you feeling off this list?
Oh, it's a great list, man. There's still so many options out there. A guy I was looking at right off the bat, Stefan Nason. That's a guy that I'm interested in. He's not going anywhere. He's on that top power play there in Jersey, and he's like the Zach Hyman of that power play. He just gets in positions, and he scored a beautiful goal the other night. Hughes just sauced it past him. He tapped it out of the air. He's going to get a ton of chances, and I think that role's pretty solid. So, yeah, it's a great player. I also want to shout out Will Cooley, just as a player of interest. 6 points in the last 5 games for the Rangers. Obviously, he's good in bangers leagues. Metrics are reasonable, but yeah, that's a guy, that's a player of interest for me in a deeper format.
All right. Speaking of deeper formats, sub 20% rostered, you've got these guys: Sharangovich, Zaka, Roslovic, Chinikov, Fantilli, Rossi, Beniers, Gauthier. Definitely, I think Sharangovich and Zaka are the class of this group here for me. Roslovic still hanging on to some Aho line exposure there. Chinikov and Fantilli are down the lineup in Columbus. They are leaning on that Monahan line a little bit more. Rossi, I was excited for him to potentially get on the top power play with Zuccarello out, but they've chosen to go with Ryan Hartman, so that's taken a little bit of the shine off Rossi. And Joel Eriksson-Ek playing between Boldy and Cap on the top line has also taken some shine off Rossi. I expect that it'll probably change again at some point in the future, but definitely it's moved him down the list for me at this point. Sub 10% rostered. Want to shout out Jackson Blake. Looks like the latest lines we have out of the Canes practice is that Jackson Blake is on that Roslovic Aho line on the top power play as well. Jackson Blake there. So yeah, just a player that I might want to shout out here. for Carolina. Obviously, he plays for Carolina, so the underlying metrics look good. But like 16 minutes a night, and he's ninth in Corsi 4 per 60, sixth in scoring chances 4 per 60. That's not by accident. 16th in individual
Damn.
scoring chances 4 per 60 over the last five is Jackson Blake. So I did want to shout him out. I do think he might be a bit of a priority if he can hang on to this. So yeah, it might not be a bad week to make that speculative ad and see where it goes. Jason Zucker, as you mentioned, Blake, he's been having a good week for you. Yeah, I think this is a guy who can potentially produce if he continues to have this deployment. I kind of just kept waiting for the other shoe to drop with him being like on the top power play all the time. I was like, oh, that's not going to last.
Right.
It's lasting so far.
Well,
And
Tage
yeah,
is out, so yeah, there you go.
yeah, we'll see. He was already there before Tage went out and held it for a number of games before, so we'll see when Tage comes back for sure. But dude, want to shout him out. Ryan Hartman on the top power play with Zuccarello out, so as long as Zuccarello's out, I think you got to be interested in Ryan Hartman. Barrett Hayton, yeah, Utah has not been having a good run as of late. So it sounded like at the end of the game, they kind of went back to Hayton between Keller and Schmaltz, which obviously I think would be a benefit for Hayton. I feel like they're better than this. They're definitely scuffling at the moment, but I think they're better than this. And if Hayton can get between Keller and Schmaltz again for a while, should have some interest there. Tyler Bertuzzi, Anthony Duclair, even though he's injured, could be a good stash. Connor Zari, nice goal the other night,
Yeah.
game winner. Kirby Doc, Matt Coronado also scored for Calgary in that game. Shane Pinto, as I mentioned, the underlying stats are looking not too bad, so I want to shout him out. And Vasily Podkolzin playing on the top line with McDavid and Draisaitl at the moment. Who knows how long that lasts, but worth mentioning here as well. Anybody here, Blake, that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I like your Jackson Blake take. It's not a player that I was really focusing on. I have so many Canes on a lot of my teams, but what's one more? I mean, come on. They're a wagon over there. They're generating a ton of offense. So yeah, I like that. I like that little spotlight.
All right, let's talk some defensemen then. Aaron Ekblad got on the top power play, which was something that a lot of people expected at the beginning of the year, and then it didn't happen. They tried Boqvist, they tried Balinskis, and now they're all the way back around to Aaron Ekblad on the top power play as of the last game. Don't know how long it's likely to last, but it does seem like they've run their course and given a fair tryout to the other two. So maybe Ekblad gets his fair tryout at this point.
Mhm.
He's been dropped in a lot of leagues because the results have not been good so far. So I am into Aaron Ekblad. He would be my number one defenseman to pick up right now if he has been dropped in your league. Olin Zellweger I have right behind that. As I mentioned, I'm super into Olin Zellweger. I've talked about him every week for the last little while, so don't need to rehash any of that. Justin Folk, as I mentioned before, actually has really good underlying numbers at the moment, and so I'm kind of expecting that he'll start to turn things around, especially with Rob Thomas back in the fold. Emil Andre, it sounds like he'll be back in the Philadelphia lineup, and it sounds like he was taking power play one reps in practice, so I'm kind of expecting him to get back there. Yeah, rostering a Torts player is never fun, but while he's there, it could be something. And, you know, there's always a chance that he becomes one of Torts' guys and he just hangs on to that all year long. Owen Powerbow and Byram, we've talked about already. Jacob Truba has been dropped in some leagues, dipping below 50% here. OEL, Lane Hudson, Timothy Liljegren, and Jake Wallman. Who would you take between those two? I've been getting this question a fair bit. Liljegren or Wallman moving forward, Blake? Do you have a preference? Liljegren has been sticking with the top power play on with those guys, but Jake Wallman has had a nice little hot streak after returning from his benching slash injury slash who knows what any of that really was. But what do you think
Yeah.
there?
I don't know. I trust Wallman a little bit more, and I feel like Wallman doesn't need. I know I've said this before, and I don't know if we agree on this, but I think Wallman still has value even if he's not on power play one. Like we saw proof of concept in Detroit. This is a double-digit goal scorer, on that team anyway. And I think he will get power play one, or he'll moonlight there. He'll at the very least get power play two. So I think I take Wallman there for the underlying peripherals that keep his floor sort of solid as well. But I Timothy Logren could pop off as well, getting that power play one deployment. I think he probably will stick on power play one. But yeah, I think I'm going Wallman there. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I tend to think that over the course of time, you need to have power play one to be super fantasy relevant. Yeah, it's a nice stretch for Wallman. The underlying metrics look really good. I do think, yeah, there's a reason I was into this player before the
Yep.
season started. And maybe he does take back power play one, and then it would be Jake Wallman with a bullet for me. But yeah, at the moment, I think I'm just rolling with whoever's on top power play. Um, yeah, I don't feel strongly about that take, but that's where I'm at.
Make a
Uh,
decision, Nate. What are you doing? Oh God. All
you
right, that's fine.
can't make me.
Okay, that's
Sub 20% roster. Zellweger, Andre Liljegren all show up here. Vlasic, as we mentioned, on top power play while Seth Jones is out. So as long as he is out, Vlasic remains a long term option for you. Matt Roy, Simon Edvinson, other guys that I would consider here. Moving over to the goalies, we've got some 0G options for you. Petr Mrazek had a nice game. Took a few days off there, it sounded like, for a personal matter. Came back and yeah, didn't seem to affect him whatsoever being away from the rink for a couple days. He came right back in, had a great game, and got a win there. Sam Montembeault coming off a shutout. He's definitely an option as well. He'll run hot and cold all year, and you won't be able to predict it, but he's definitely an option for volume. Charlie Lindgren has played pretty well his last couple of starts. And yeah, I think more often than not, it'll still be a 50-50. I know Logan Thompson did get a back-to-back at one point,
yep.
but yeah, I think they're probably going back to the 50-50 at this point, it looks like. Sub 25% rostered, Karel Melka, as you mentioned. I don't know if he can really stake a claim there and continue on long term, but if Utah does turn around and it happens to coincide with Vejmelka getting the majority of the starts, I could see a situation where Vejmelka gets at least a 50-50 split and potentially more there. Mackenzie Blackwood, obviously in San Jose, he's going to get the chance to stop some pucks, and he's been doing that decently well of late, so you can throw him in there. Tristan Jarry seems to be the goalie that the Pens want to make work. I don't know that they're going to be able to, but
Painful.
he's on the list. And then Alex Lyon I threw in here as well. I'm not like super excited about this one, but he did have a nice start there. Got the win against the Islanders, made 22 saves, only allowed one goal. So I'll throw him in at the bottom. Anybody else, Blake? What do you think of these goalies? Any favorites?
I mean, no, there's not really any favorites there. I'd probably Vejmelka. I would say I know you love Mrazek. You got him everywhere, and he's cooking, man. He's really kind of turned it around from what he was used to be known as, which is a complete sieve. But something I've been loving doing lately in my leagues is getting these backup goalie starts like Jonathan Quick or Calvin Pickard or, players like that on good teams that are getting starts. I've been really enjoying that in terms of 0G. So that's been working out well for me, but I don't know. Who would you say has been your top 0G guy so far this year, like 20 games in? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's Mrazek for sure. I've got him in 3 or 4 leagues. I have dropped him at times and picked him back up in other spots. Like, it's not been a guy that I've said like, oh, I gotta have this guy on my team every single week. But yeah, Mrazek I've had in a lot of spots, and he's been pretty good to me so far. So I think that would have to be the guy that I would crown my personal 0G
Ooh,
king in the early going here.
legend.
All right. Let's move over to the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. This is just going to be a recap. So moving forward, Blake and I are going to pick our streamers on the Sunday night show, the flagship show that comes out Monday mornings. But we are going to give a quick recap here just so you can hear that sweet music one more time a week. Blake so far has gotten 3 games out of William Eklund. That's resulted in 17.5 points. I've gotten 2 games out of Nick Schmaltz, that has resulted in 5 points. So clearly I've got Blake exactly where I want him headed into the weekend here. Yeah, definitely looking like a solid W for me. Wouldn't you agree, Blake?
You know what? I'll let you have that, buddy. That's fine. I love when my players get shorthanded points because we're in kick couple scoring, and that's that's one of the things there. So yeah, Eklund got a shorty assist. We love that here, don't we, Nate?
Absolutely
Oh
fantastic.
yeah,
Couldn't
buddy.
have dreamt it any better myself. Well, if you made it this far, it'd be nice if you would come join us in the Discord community. Come ask questions, talk to the people in there, 1,500 plus managers in there talking fantasy hockey all day and all night. While you're here, like, rate, review, subscribe, comments. That all really does help us out, help us to get out in front of more people and let them hear about us across the streams. But that's going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.